Hello again. HIP, I said, didn't I? Historically informed performance. Between the time of Mozart and now, there have been what you could consider to be fairly minor but nonetheless important changes in violins. In the 18th century, the fingerboard was flatter, closer to the body of the violin. There was a shorter bass bar, that's a piece of wood that goes inside the violin and affects the acoustics of the violin. Players in Mozart's time, until not long, very long ago, used gut strings, and they also used a Baroque style bow, which is a bit different from the modern bow. And there were also changes in approach. Vibrato was used sparingly. There was absolute faithfulness to the text, which of course was right there in front of them. It had just been written. And there was an attempt to recreate the sound and style that Mozart might have been accustomed to. This applies, of course, to the orchestra as well as the soloist. Briefly, the sound is gentler in the 18th century, less brilliant, warmer, and woodwind, brass and timpani, where they're in the score, are a little more prominent as a rule. Perhaps, too, the soloist is more primus inter pares rather than a star playing out front. The effect is more intimate. Once or twice in quieter moments here, our violinist that we're about to hear, who is a historically informed performance violinist, at least for Mozart, he cuts the scoring down. So he's playing only with a quartet of strings. Right at the beginning of the movement, you'll hear that, not the whole group, which would be small anyway. Now, our violinist is Giuliano Carmignola, and we're going to hear him with Il Quartettone, conducted by Carlo de Martini. His performances are just outstanding, representing the very best of HIP. Here we'll hear the finale of the fifth concerto, the Turkish. I know you've heard it before. Again, but direct comparison with Perelman won't be possible because he is, of course, on the first video. I could have put them side by side or one after the other. But for one thing, you might not have wanted to hear the same piece twice. And for another, it's not a competition with one being better than the other, or worse, one being right and the other wrong. No, it doesn't work that way. It's just good to hear another approach expertly done. So here we have him. We have Giuliano Carmagnoli, and this, I don't think you'll notice all that much difference, but nonetheless, this is a historically important performance of the final movement of Mozart's fifth violin concerto, the Turkish. I think that's the most exciting Turkish section that I've come across so far. And the thing I didn't mention earlier, I so much like the little rising, falling chromatic figure just before the last 40 in that movement. It's not used at any other point in the concerto, and in some way it just seems to say, I'm nearly finished. And then you have the little brum, 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 and then it goes off into mid-air. Well, there we are, the fifth violin concerto, the longest and probably the best of all of them. Mozart wrote several other pieces for violin and orchestra. He wrote adagios, single movement adagios, rondos, and for violin and piano, sets of variations, an andante and allegretto, a fugue, another adagio, another andante, and so on. And for violin and viola, 2 duos, where he was helping out Michael Haydn, Joseph's brother. Michael was also a composer, who had been commissioned to write a set of 6 but fell ill, and Mozart stepped in to complete the commission, so it could be passed on to whoever it was that was paying for it. So finally, though, we come to the Sinfonia Concertante in E-flat major K364, and with it Mozart's highest peak of achievement for violin with orchestra, and of course violin and viola with orchestra. He wrote it in 1779 when he was on a tour of Europe, and he visited, among other places, Mannheim and Paris. It's his most substantial concerto for string instruments by some way, over 30 minutes long, whereas the fifth concerto just about reaches 26, and the others are around about 20. There are 3 movements, and we'll hear the expressively melancholy conversation in the andante, in which the 2 soloists engage in this, as I've just called it, expressively melancholy conversation. I've just read the same line twice, with subdued support from the orchestra. Towards the end, there is a most beautiful cadenza, after which the piece ends gently and quietly, and with it this video. Our players here are Josef Suk and Thomas Kakuska with the Suk Chamber Orchestra. This is the second movement of the Sinfonia Concertante for violin, viola and orchestra.